MLS does a good job of taking aging European stars, bring them over, let them star for a team. Wayne Rooney has like 10 or 11 goals, top 5 in the MLS. Zlatan has 16 goals, third in the MLS. A very, very smart business move. We're going to bring over aging stars for a growing sport, fledgling sport in America, growing league, and we're going to insert a David Beckham, a Wayne Rooney, and it works. They're very good players.
You know who did that before?
Who?
Remember the New York Cosmos with Pele
And Giorgio Canaglia.
And Franz Beckenbauer, who all great stars who came and played. I went to a game at Giant Stadium.
Well, the Cosmos were great.
They were great. They were great.
Beckenbauer for the equalizer.
Yeah, very nice.
So you were doing baseball. I was falling in love with soccer years ago.
I remember that very vividly.
Okay, so you do not like Dak Prescott.
What? I'm just going by the numbers. It's not a personal thing.
7-1 last 8 games. He's a real leader. He's a real grown-up. There's no nonsense. There's no grabbing your stuff. He's a real grown-up.
I get all that, but don't kid yourself. Ezekiel Elliott is the reason why the Cowboys are on the level where people think they have a chance to win a Super Bowl. We've seen it when Ezekiel's not there. Dak is not that same quarterback. We just had the athletic poll with 55 NFL front office and coaches, right?
Yeah.
And where did he rank? 3rd-tier quarterback. That's a fair rating. He can't win you a game by himself.
Okay, Cam Newton was also in the 3rd tier. Why do we support Cam and always bang on Dak? Because I think Dak isn't even in his prime yet. I think Cam's coming out of his prime.
Yeah, but the difference is you saw Cam put on that unbelievable MVP season. He got his team to the Super Bowl. They were 15-1, so you got to give him some credit for that. We've seen him
he had
be able
one,
to play that.
He did have a great year. I've watched NBA basketball. There are guys that have great years. Baseball, Brady Anderson out of the blue hits 50 jacks.
I remember that.
Yeah, there are guys who have great years, but Cam over time, I think, has underachieved expectations. I think Dak's overachieved, and I still think he's getting better.
But I think Dak, everything has to be perfect. And that's the thing. You got to have the defense, got to have the offensive line, got to have the running back, and then you can cover up some things. When you ask him to be that guy, you can't tell me right now, game on the line, 45 seconds to go, and you're giving the ball to Dak Prescott to win the game. I can name you 10 other guys I'd rather have the football.
But if he's 11, who else is out there?
Well, but I'm just saying, I'm not paying a 3rd-tier quarterback $30 million.
Yeah, those other 10 guys I can't sign.
And here's the other thing. If Jerry Jones does not sign Ezekiel Elliott, given with all the stuff on the table he's trying to win, it'll be his 2nd worst decision since him and Jimmy Johnson parted back in 1995. That was the last time. Jerry Jones and the Cowboys have won 3 or 4 playoff games since then. Barry Switzer came in and won, but that was Jimmy Johnson's team.
And momentum.
And all that. You know it. And they haven't won since. Jerry, I can't believe that he's going to fumble this away by being cheap and playing around with a guy who matters this much. Jerry Jones, stop playing a game. You're not going to win with Dak Prescott only. Do not do it. You remember he did it last time with Emmett. They didn't pay him. He sat out the first 2 games. The Cowboys were 0-2. I'm telling you, the Cowboys can't give up any games. And Colin, it's not just 2 games. Say if he held out and he didn't pay him after the first 2 games, then it might take him game 3, 4 to get back into shape.
Well, Zeke is a guy that can put on weight pretty quickly.
So I'm just saying,
yeah,
that might wind up costing you 4 games until he's back to football shape.
I will say this, Philadelphia is the most talented team maybe in the league. It's not a division to screw around. And the NFC, whereas the AFC is the conference of Brady, the NFC is the conference of parity. There's a bunch of good teams.
And imagine if you mess around and don't have your running back and you lose to the Giants, a team you should beat. That would be one of those games you look back and go, we gave that up. Why did we give that up and go and play the Giants when we weren't at full strength?
By the way, I do believe Michael Thomas is a good contract because I think Drew Brees at the end of last year was not the same quarterback. And this proves Drew Brees is on the up and up. He's aging like you should age as a 40-year-old quarterback. His arm at the end of last year, they weren't throwing the ball vertically.
Can you say wet noodle? I mean, really?
It was. So I think every year in the NFL, a good team pulls down. I think it's the Saints. Max Unger, gone. Ingram, gone. Brees, aging. Frankly, I think Atlanta and Carolina bounce back. I think New Orleans comes back to a 500 team.
And, Colin, not only that, this obsession with the play that cost them a chance at the Super Bowl. Let it go, New Orleans. What are you doing? They got a court case and somebody else. They want the NFL to come down there and talk about it. There have been bad calls in the history of sports. Let it go. If they don't let it go, the people of New Orleans, I might have to make up a voodoo doll and cost them and say that they never win another Super Bowl.
But, you know, it's funny about it. After that bad no call, they kicked a field goal, took a lead. At home, still couldn't win.
Thank you.
It's called a mirror.
Nobody
Look
ever
into
remembers that. Right. It was almost like the Cubs with the... Bartman. Do you know that they still could have won that series? Everybody thinks that was the end of the series. It wasn't.
Right. So, you know, it's interesting. As a guy from Detroit, you should not like Aaron Rodgers, but you tend to defend him. You're very tough on Detroit's quarterback, Matt Stafford, who you call...
Stat Padford.
He's pad stats. But Aaron Rodgers, who owns Detroit, you love him, even despite there's some arrogance. He's increasingly been hurt. He can be, I think it's fair to say, more challenging to coach than some quarterbacks. Certainly not all. Jay Cutler was a handful. But you still defend Aaron Rodgers to the hilt.
No doubt about it, because the numbers bear it out. And Bucky Brooks, you know our buddy Bucky Brooks.
I love Bucky, a man of common sense.
You know what? Bucky Brooks swung and missed big time when he said Aaron Rodgers was overrated. There's no way you can call him. You might say he's been down the last couple years. He's got to show me something this year. He's got to prove, I'll buy all that. Okay? But to say a guy who owns 6 NFL quarterback records, who set a record last year with 402 consecutive completions, who has the all-time quarterback rating in the history of the league, not the last 10 years, the history of anybody who's ever played quarterback, who has the greatest touchdown to interception ratio of anybody. He's 4.2 to 1. Tom Brady, who's a pretty darn good quarterback, is 2.5 to 1. That's how big the gap is. To call him overrated is ridiculous. I nominate Bucky Brooks for a job with the NFL and with the XFL as a general manager. That's where you belong, with the XFL, because your football analysis when you're talking about Aaron Brooks is
Aaron
null and void.
Aaron
Rodgers, I mean. No, Bucky, what are you doing?
Listen, I think Bucky is a man of common sense and integrity, and I think Aaron Rodgers hates me because I was the first, and I stay on this. Quarterback is about a lot of stuff. Michael Vick had a great... Could we have that Michael Vick bite? Michael Vick talked about this yesterday. Quarterback's different. And Michael Vick walked into the league, and he was probably the best athlete in the Atlanta Falcons. And Michael Vick never really understood first 2 years in the league. It doesn't matter. You're not one of the guys. Vic said this yesterday on the show.
I remember my second year, Dan Reeves, before the game started, I was, jumping around with the guys and super hyper. And he pulled me to the side and said, oh, hold up. You're the quarterback. You got to be different.
Because quarterback is about leadership. Is it fair to say about Aaron, I've got family members, players, teammates, coaches. I've had enough leaks saying he's difficult that in the leadership thing, sometimes he's a little stubborn and a little condescending and doesn't have a Montana or Brady or Russell Wilson ability to kind of galvanize players simultaneously. He's not great always in that. Is that fair?
Okay, that's fair, but I think that you would not be having this conversation if the tight end, when they had Seattle beat, didn't block the ball from Jordy Nelson on an onside kick where they would have won and gone to the Super Bowl. He's had to play, and I'm not making excuses for him, it's just fact. His defense in big playoff games have given up 40-plus points at least 3 times. I might be missing one. It's almost impossible to win an NFL playoff game where your defense gives up 40 points.
That's fair.
Aaron Rodgers has put them in position. The only reason year after year they've been in position to even be included in the talk is because of his ability. That's how good he is.
Yeah, no, the criticism of the Packers front office giving him a defense is absolutely just and fair, but I do think the last 2 years they've drafted and they've gone after defensive help. So I think they finally, it took them 6 years to figure it out. They've kind of finally figured out we got to have it. By the way, Andrew Luck's first GM couldn't figure out he needed an offensive line in a running game. Sometimes The organizations don't give star quarterback support. Aaron, I do think we'll have defensive support. All right, before we let Rob Parker go, Fox Softball League, we got some videotape. Rob, explain what happens at the Fox Softball League. You're a Baseball Hall of Fame voter.
Yes, you know I love it. We got the video?
I don't care about that. I want to see.
All right, here we go. This is me at the bat.
Okay.
In the last inning. And there it is, a walk-off RBI single.
Oh, I thought it was a home run.
No, it was a single. I'll take that. But we won the game.
Is it a walk-off for you?
It was a walk-off. Look, I was excited. My teammates were excited.
You have an orange shirt.
Well, we don't have any uniforms. So.
Well, Fox hasn't purchased uniforms for the team?
We don't have uniforms. You see, I'm just excited. Everybody's excited. Look at that swing.
It's
not a bad swing.
Hold on. You don't generate a ton of power.
Not
you
a power
kind of lunge.
hitter.
You ain't Mike Trout.
I always say sports has a short menu. Wins and losses. We got the W. Remember that.
Congrats, Rob.
Thank you.
Congrats, Rob. Rob Parker, the instigator at FS1. Jane Slater around the corner, latest on the Cowboys. It's The Herd. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.